Carlota Montoya, thank you for joining Drinking on the Edge.
Oh, thank you very much, David.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, Carlota Montoya, a resident of Mexico City, Mexico, is joining us. She's doing a project in Acapulco at the moment. Tough life you have. Carlota and I met about exactly 1 year ago today at this December recording at a wine competition in Mexico. And even though we met at a wine competition, she was charged with something different. They also judged spirits there. And Carlota is one of Mexico's premier number of tequila maestros, in her case, maestra. She understands the agave spirit that is tequila and its siblings of mezcal and raicilla and so on, equally as well. Though we will have someday a talk with her about agave spirits, no doubt. We'll devote another segment to that with this wonderful expert. We're here today talking about Mexican wines. And we earlier tasted some wines locally here with some folks here in Rhinecliff. But she's going to give us a little bit of perspective on what makes Mexican wines, a little bit of the history of it. So Carlota, again, thank you for coming and share with us a bit about your native country's wines.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm thrilled about this interview and I'm very happy for your new project. Thank you.
So a little bit of history, from what I recall in my wine studies. The grapes are indigenous, of course, to the Americas, as they are in many other places of the world, different types of the Vitis genus. But in terms of wine making, as we know it, that really started not in what's known currently as the United States, but what is now known currently as Mexico. The conquistadors and the priests they brought along with them to do their thing had a need for wine or a desire for wine built into it. And a lot of this was first founded in Mexico. Can you give us a little bit of background and maybe skipping to the background on what's happening now in Mexico today with quality wine production?
Yeah, actually, the production began in Mexico City. In Chapultepec area is the part that we have. It's still a huge park inside of Mexico City.
It's a famous name.
3 times, yeah, it's very famous, and it's 3 times the Central Park size, so it is huge. And in the middle of it, there is a castle. And right there, the conquistadors tried to put the first vineyards in the new continent. But of course, the weather didn't help to the production of the wine in that area. So they began to build new towns, and the main cities for the colonial story are really close to mines, because the Spaniards came to explode our resources, our natural resources.
They were there for the gold and the silver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So every main colonial town is with wine or spirits production, but of course that came later. And they have a huge church, a cathedral, and they built these colonial towns really close to the mines. So one of the most important is in Coahuila, what we know today as Coahuila, and Parras is the first site of wine production in all the continents. So, yeah, that's very important.
So for those people listening, Coahuila, excuse my pronunciation,
Coahuila.
Coahuila, thank you, is a state. It's one of how many Mexican states do we have?
32.
Okay, so it's one of the 32 Mexican states that Carlota is referring to. I'm sorry, please continue.
And Coahuila is one of the biggest ones. It's really large. It's bigger than Spain, so it is huge.
Wow.
And this winery, Taja Madero, which is the first in the whole continent, never stopped producing wine since 1547.
1547, that's quite a heritage.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And Casa Madero continues to this day as a functioning winery.
Yeah, and it's one of the most important in Mexico.
Of course.
It produces a lot of volume and really good quality wine. I think it's one of this French style wine, but they have consistency on their quality, and it's always good. Not extraordinary, but always good.
That's good to know. With my friends here in Rhinecliff, we tasted some wines from the people at Domecq, and we tasted some wines from, Montechanique and Bodega de Santo Tomas. So we tasted wines from a different part of Mexico, just to let you know how we're connecting here. But please continue about wines grown elsewhere in Mexico. So Coahuila is the origin. It's the location for Casa Madero. And you were recently, I believe, at a conference that took place there too.
Yes, I was there 3 weeks ago. So I'm full with knowledge around the area right now.
And we met in Guanajuato last year, another notable region for wine production, for mines. Good connection you made there. So the wines were growing around these famous mines. Guanajuato is also known to a lot of Americans as the host state of the town of San Miguel de Allende, which is a very popular, long-standing, not a recent, but a very long-standing cross-cultural gathering town for Americans and Mexicans. Americans have been there since the early part of the 20th century. Long history there. And Guanajuato is also well known for it being one of the states in which tequila is produced. A minor one, but still important nonetheless. Okay, where in Mexico today, I believe wine is produced commercially in Mexico today in, I believe it's 14 states. Is that correct?
Right now, 16.
16. Oh, it's growing.
Yeah, it's growing. The development of the industry has been grown a lot for the last 30 years. When Montechanique began their production, they changed the game and started to produce high quality wines instead of high volume wines.
Yeah, and that was my first visit to Mexico for wine, for business of wine, was with the elder Hans Bockoff, rest in peace, and learning about his wines and what's happening there in Baja California and specifically in the Guadalupe Valley. So the Guadalupe Valley, if we can focus on that just for a moment, how does the Guadalupe Valley, which is the dominant force in Mexican wine in terms of overall volume and tourism and everything, how do the wines there maybe are specifically different than from what's happening throughout the rest of Mexico? What makes the Guadalupe Valley unique, especially for those people who live close by in San Diego, Los Angeles, who can easily go there for a weekend?
Yeah, I think they have these different things they've been developed that make it so unique. For one side, you have the gastronomic part. You have an amazing restaurant around, very good quality cuisine, amazing raw materials for your cooking. You are just next to the Pacific Ocean, so you have a really good quality fish. And really good chefs also. So one is the gastronomic road in the area.
And I believe they refer to the cuisine there as Baja Med. It's become a bit of a buzzword. Baja Med is a way to incorporate the regional cuisine, along with a little bit of the fact that perhaps the climate is a little bit more Mediterranean than maybe most of Mexico might be. And also the freshness of the ingredients, much of which is a lot of agriculture there, much of which is exported to U.S., but also to different parts of Mexico, is available directly there near the wine-growing area. So you have a Baja Med cuisine that's also developed.
Yes, exactly. So you have this, and you also have all the touristic sites to visit, the wine states. You have a lot of wineries with really different moods, different architectural styles. So you can go to something super sustainable and green and with clean electric provide. But you also have these amazing and super modern new wineries as Montechanique. I think it's very spectacular being there. Or Domecq, which is more traditional. So you can really visit, if you were in a different country by winery, it's very, very different. And I think that's the magic of the Guadalupe Valley, because you have so much varieties and so much sites and different types of making wine and different varieties of grape. I think this it's like Mexico. We have all these huge pre-Hispanic cultures around. So we are very different in every part of Mexico. And this is how Guadalupe Valley has developed with this diversity. That's their magic.
I agree with you. I have to say you have everything from the Cheto concern, El Cheto, the big winery there, to you have tiny wineries where really young people are making natural wines. Everything is 100% organic, no added, blah, 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 following trends that are happening all across the world. So you have all iterations of wine production that are happening in this area that is a very short distance from the U.S., California, Baja California, Mexican border for people to visit. So anybody listening from southern U.S., California, if you haven't gone yet, you got to go. It's a lot closer and a lot more, in my opinion, more fun than going to Napa Valley. And the food is better and a lot easier priced. So we say that. How is it that Mexican wine is developing its infrastructure? Mexico is its own country, it's its own culture, doesn't do everything the U.S. does, but your listenership here is from the U.S. So what's happening now in Mexico to take advantage in a good way for this unprecedented rapid expansion into the wine sector? Again, Mexico doesn't have the same laws, it doesn't have the same background with wine. So what's, in your opinion, as a wine professional, as a spirits professional, what's being done to ensure that Mexican wines can maintain a high quality and grow the high quality?
I think that there is new hubs in develop to the production of wines. One is going on Coahuila, which is this huge state with an amazing climate to produce wines and varieties as Pinot Noir, for example. And they are making really good progress in this. So there's a lot of investment right there. Like in Guanajuato, you were able to see this amount of investment in the area, which is huge. So high rollers are making bets on the development of new places with water resources, natural resources around a really good climate, as Coahuila and as Chihuahua, which is the biggest state in Mexico and have mountains and huge areas to make wine. And of course, most of the new producers have a lot of cows and they make agriculture too. So they already know how to work with the field and the soil. And I think that's a really huge advantage for the development of the wine industry in Mexico, that the new high rollers know about the agriculture. In other terms, but it's very important.
It is, but one of the difficulties I find, and we're not going to resolve this here today, is that there is no notable wine school in Mexico.
No.
You have at least two important state schools in California that have been for years and years internationally renowned. You have one here in New York State, internationally renowned, and several others scattered throughout the U.S. There's a new one developing in my former home state of Texas. So what's happening in the U.S. and has been in existence for a long time is not yet come to fruition in Mexico. And this is one of the things that I think is holding Mexico back, the lack of government and private investment in an academic institution that is dedicated to focusing on viticulture, not all agriculture, but specifically viticulture. Now, to your point about the central Mexican states, it's good for the casual listener to understand that there's high altitude here, many cases that ensure cool nights so the grapes ripen not just from the sun and heat of the day, but also have the supporting cool nights to help to make a perfect wine grape, maintain its acidity. So that's important for the casual listener to know that, and your reference to Chihuahua and Coahuila. Ooh, got the pronunciation right this time. Okay, do you have any personal favorites, grape varieties? I'm not going to ask you for wineries, but that's not fair. What are your favorite grape varieties that are grown in Baja California or in Mexico in general? Just what makes you happy when you're tasting Mexican? What grape varieties are showing the most promise?
For example, right now, I think there are a lot of wineries making really good Bioy, which is one of my favorite varieties. And it has been forgotten in so many places. And here it's making good progress. So I really like what's happening with Viognier in Mexico. And there's a lot of experiments with varieties of Syrah, Grenache, of course, Pinot Noir. I love Pinot Noir. It's my favorite variety in the world. And in Coahuila, they are making really interesting experiments around.
Good to hear.
So that, I think, yes, it's really good what is going on right there. And the trend in Baja California right now is making a lot of pesma. So they're making with moscatel, and it's really good. So I think something really fun is going on because we don't have that rules of production. So it's like a huge lab. So we have a lot of varieties, a lot of different processing of the grapes, and that's great. I think it is really good for the industry.
That's an excellent point. Thank you for mentioning that, Carlota. The fact that there is a lack of infrastructure in terms of regulations can benefit Mexico, and having this the impetus and the ease of following through with experimentations. So Pet Nat Moscato from Baja California, it's easy, fun to drink, and I would think relatively affordable for the producer to make and for the consumer to purchase. When we met each other last year, we were treated to an afternoon buffet at one of the distilleries we visited in Guanajuato that featured, it was a wide variety of insects. And I've got photos of my eating scorpions that I've shared with friends and family to prove it. Scorpions were okay. They were dead, by the way, everybody. They were dead. I didn't try to put a live scorpion in my mouth. I am a Scorpio, but I will not put a live scorpion in my mouth. So since then, there's been an increased media coverage, generally speaking, in the world about the use of insects as a food source. And there's good scientific basis for this. I think more people are becoming comfortable with the concept, if not the food itself. You have recently been profiled. The timing of our interview is fantastic because you very recently were profiled by our esteemed colleague Liz Thatch of Sonoma, California, in Forbes' website, and by Spain's El País newspaper in regards to a presentation that you conducted about this exact subject, the eating of insects in conjunction with Mexican wine. Can you please share with our listeners your thoughts and experiences about this theme?
Oh, yeah, it is fantastic. First, I like to say that the consumption of insects is our primary diet for Mexicans. Before the arrival of the Spaniards in Mexico, we used to eat insects and small animals. The larger animals to feed us came with the Spaniards. So this is very important in Mexican culture. For example, in Oaxaca, when you travel there, you will always find chapulines, which is crickets. In every restaurant, you will find this dish called tlayuda, which is a huge tortilla with cheese and beans and chapulines on top. So this is going on in here and always going. But now with the global crisis and the global warming, global crisis in terms of food, in terms of resources, and in terms of climate change, of course that the insects start to come along because it's everywhere and it's a really good source. So going back to the Congress, to the World Congress of Wine and Vine, the director of the Consejo Mexicano Vitivinícola, she asked me to make this. I travel a lot to Oaxaca because I produce mezcal there. So she was like, oh, you should do a tasting of Mexican wine and insects. And this is how it began. So I started to talk with the producers of insects in Oaxaca and really to make this research about the flavor, the texture, the size, because I didn't know anything about it. And how to really know the quality of the insects and how they make the processing of it and how they flavor it, the things you need to know to conduct a tasting.
There's a lot to be discovered in people, and despite their appearance being similar, crickets and grasshoppers in Spanish have a similar name, but how they taste and how you prepare them are very different. I mean, a cricket will taste different than a grasshopper. Texturally, organoleptically, the smell and the taste. So there's so many nuances that are possible with insects as well. Just like there's a difference with a four-footed red-meated animal, a cow or a lamb, there's going to be a difference, strangely enough, with an insect differentiation with grasshopper and cricket.
Yeah, that's it. And also the processing is very different from one producer to the other. I found this guy who removed the legs. I think that's very important because the tricky part of it, a cricket or any reasonable size bug, it is that you're eating an insect, and also the legs can get stick on your teeth, and it's very uncomfortable to eat. So, well, I found this guy who removed the legs off, and I love the texture and the consistency on his production, because that's really important too. I have a really good product because I need to travel that from Oaxaca to Baja California, which is really far.
Yes, it's very far, and it's a long way. I would think the most difficult part of removing the legs from the crickets is getting them to stay in one place, because if they jump, forget it. You're chasing one cricket all the time. Small joke.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course, because they removed the legs after it's processed.
Of course, and so they're not jumping around. So they're not jumping around in your car as well. Of course, that's very thoughtful.
Yeah. Cannot run away. We found that when I started to do all the tests for the pairing, I wasn't really comfortable with the Mexican wine for it. So I decided to make 2 different tastings, one with sparkling wines and the other one with sherry.
And how, I presume that it was enjoyed. People enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very good.
It was really, really good, actually.
Well, I hope we have the pleasure of you promoting Mexican wine with insects, or not even with insects, just by itself, because Mexican wines are delicious, and many are available in the United States. Many more in time, I'm sure, will be as Americans grow their interest for their neighbors' wines south of our shared border. Carlota, again, thank you for your time. Enjoy Acapulco while you're there. I know you're there working. You're not sitting on the beach when otherwise. But again, we look forward to having you talking about agave spirits in the future. Thank you for joining us at Drinking on the Edge.
Oh, thank you very much, David. This was so much fun. Thank you.